The Unitary Executive Theory is a constitutional interpretation that asserts the President of the United States holds broad and centralized control over the executive branch. Rooted in Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, this theory is based on the idea that all executive power is vested solely in the President, granting them significant authority over federal agencies, law enforcement, and executive decision-making. Proponents of this theory argue that Article 2's vesting clause, which states that the executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America, establishes a clear and singular authority over the executive branch. They contend that the President has the power to direct and control subordinate officials, remove executive appointees at will, and take unilateral action in areas traditionally considered within executive discretion. This perspective often leads to debates over the limits of executive power, particularly regarding congressional oversight and the judiciary's role in checking presidential authority. The Take Care Clause, which requires the president to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, is often cited by supporters of the Unitary Executive Theory to justify broad enforcement discretion. This includes directing how laws are implemented, prioritizing enforcement efforts, and in some interpretations, refusing to enforce laws the president deems unconstitutional. Critics, however, argue that this approach undermines the separation of powers by allowing the president to unilaterally alter the execution of laws passed by Congress. One of the most controversial aspects of the Unitary Executive Theory is the president's authority over executive branch officials. Supporters argue that the Constitution does not grant Congress the power to insulate executive agencies from direct presidential control, meaning that independent regulatory commissions and special counsels could be seen as unconstitutional restrictions on executive power. This view gained traction in cases such as Myers v. United States, 1926, where the Supreme Court ruled that the president has the authority to remove executive officials without congressional approval. However, later cases like Humphrey's Executor v. United States, 1935, placed some limits on this power, affirming that Congress can create independent agencies with protections from direct presidential removal. The Unitary Executive Theory also has implications for national security and executive privilege. Some interpretations argue that the president has near complete discretion in matters of foreign policy, military decisions, and emergency powers. This was evident in historical debates over war powers, surveillance programs, and the use of executive orders to bypass congressional gridlock. The post-9/11 era saw renewed discussions on the scope of presidential authority, particularly concerning detention policies, targeted killings, and intelligence operations. Opponents of the Unitary Executive Theory argue that an overly expansive interpretation of Article 2 risks undermining the constitutional system of checks and balances. They contend that if the president has unchecked control over the executive branch, it could erode legislative oversight and judicial review, leading to an imbalance of power. Legal scholars and policymakers often debate whether a strict unitary executive framework is compatible with democratic governance or whether it risks enabling authoritarian tendencies. The debate over the Unitary Executive Theory remains highly relevant in modern politics, shaping discussions on presidential power, executive orders, and administrative law. While some administrations have embraced the theory to justify strong executive action, others have taken a more restrained approach, emphasizing the role of congressional oversight and judicial review. As constitutional scholars and courts continue to interpret Article 2, the scope of presidential power will remain a contentious and evolving issue in American government.